Well, I just came off of a much needed vacation and I came back to some great news that President Trump is now doing for gun owners and refusing to shut down the Second Amendment during the government shutdown. I'm going to fill you in on two different things that he is doing, and we actually have a little bit of history to look to because past presidents have used these as opportunities to enact a form of gun control, if you will. Now, it's been kind of a ping pong thing with President Trump. Some of you guys say, hey, I thought you just praised him on this, or now you're going against him on that. One thing you got to understand with me, man, is that if he does something good worth praising, I say we do that. If he does something that goes against gun rights, we can still call that out, and that doesn't mean that we now totally hate Trump. It's always for or always against. I feel like that's kind of the political atmosphere that we're in, but nothing is ever black and white. Nobody you know is going to do something you like 100% of the time, from your mama to your husband to your wife to your kids. Nobody. And if you're not willing to call out the bad things and praise the good things, then at the end of the day, you're just looking to kind of cherry pick one or the other. I don't play that game. So anyways, it's been a bit of a ping pong, but mostly good. This one really good, I would say. Here's the surprising part, though, is how many gun owners and then other people that both of these policies affect. We'll talk about that as well. Love to hear your opinion on this. Let me know down below. Let's go ahead and jump right in. The first one applies to hunters. So on National Wildlife Refuge, any hunts that are still scheduled or have been scheduled, those hunts will be permitted to continue. Now, this may not seem like such a big deal if you're not a hunter, but think about it like this. You have roughly 436 of these wildlife refuge sites that are still open. Now, you had 7,000 employees cut down to a little over 4,600, I believe. So almost 2/3 of the employees were cut down. But essentially what they said is those hunts that were already permitted, we're going to keep those going. And this is one of the things, like, people don't realize how hunting actually not only feeds a lot of families every single year, it also creates population control. As much as you want or don't want to hear that, hunters provide an incredible service to all of us. Think about the accidents and how much more of those things that you would see, especially with deer, if hunting wasn't allowed in these places. Not only that, you have the taxidermists that depend on this time of year to make sure that them and their families can continue to survive throughout the entirety of the year. You have the processing plants for deer and wildlife and all that kind of stuff that, again, feed a lot of families, not just the ones taking their deer to the processor, but the processors themselves. During the Obama era, we saw these wildlife areas and national parks, close, right? So you'd have hunters going up to gates and they're completely chained up. Now, eventually they opened a few after some backlash, but still, it was kind of a golden opportunity, if you will, to say, oh, no employees can't allow hunters here anymore. Not realizing that, the local outfitters in a lot of those places lost tens of thousands, if not way more than that, when it comes to that specific revenue. The other big one is the ATF furloughing its employees. So then I think from October 1st or starting October 1st to October 2nd, basically all NFA paperwork was stopped. So suppressors, SBRs, AOWs, whatever you needed to file Form 4s, Form 1s, anything that you needed NFA paperwork just stopped. Now, we've seen this back in 2018 and 2019 as well. It was like a 35-day shutdown where basically none of these applications could be processed. According to the GOA, October 17th, those employees were called back and they were relisted as essential employees. That way, to keep them working, to keep the paperwork flowing, and to make sure that people continue to get those approval times. Here's the big thing, man. Over the past year and a half, roughly, the wait times have been extraordinary. Some of the best that they've ever been. That doesn't mean that we agree with the wait times, but the fact is that it has been pretty impressive to get some of these forms back within sometimes a week. And then January 1st, of course, you have no NFA tax any longer. So we expect the wait times to actually go up for a while people are, buying more of that stuff. So keep this in mind. You had 1 million something applications in 2013. You had 3.5 million in 2023. Imagine what would happen if a 30, 45-day shutdown, maybe longer, was to backlog and basically you have nobody looking at those applications. What happens? Wait times go through the door. Maybe it gets caught up by January 1st, but the probability of that is going to be super low. So at President Trump's directive and directing the ATF, hey, we need to make sure these forms get processed. That's one thing that President Trump does understand, or he has people around him that understand this part of it, because delays equal denials in gun owners' books, periods. You got to go through this form process. You got to pay the tax stamp, at least right now. There's a lot of places actually deferring that tax stamp, which is great because they know what's coming January 1st. But regardless, you got to keep those things rolling out. Otherwise, people will start turning on you and say, hey, why wouldn't you keep these applications going in order for people to exercise their rights? They've actually been, as far as the Trump administration, a lot more pro-gun as far as some of the other things that we've talked about. It's not just, oh, you have the right to carry a gun or you have the right to own an AR. It's the additional things that they've done. Again, we didn't get the NFA removal, which is what we really wanted, but GOA, other gun organizations, still fighting for that. That doesn't mean that that fight is gone. The point is, the Trump administration has went above and beyond even what a lot of gun owners expected him to do, and this is just yet another example of that. And then, of course, what we talked about with the wildlife refuge centers. So that backlog could have been months and months and months, and we could have been right back in the same situation. And unfortunately, he recalled those employees once again to start getting those applications filled out. Now, of course, this affects more than gun owners, their rights being delayed. It also affects the gun shops, creating a strain on them. Maybe people decide to back off of that suppressor right now until everything opens up. And again, that hurts their revenue. It all trickles down to hurting everybody underneath the chain of command, if you will. There's a lot of blame to go around when it comes to these shutdowns, and of course fingers are being pointed, and a lot of us just think, listen, most government employees receive backlog pay, and that doesn't mean that it doesn't make it hard for them at the time. Unfortunately, you have a lot of politicians that will continue to get paid and make a lot more money than most of us do, so it doesn't really affect them so much. But it definitely does have a trickle-down effect to everyday Americans and gun owners even, and even your rights. So it's a pretty big deal. I'm just glad to see out of almost 1 million jobs, which are furloughed as of right now, these two big operations that may not seem so big at first glance have been able to remain open and keep people's rights going as well. The fact that a government intervention or shutdown could affect your rights is pretty scary, but we've definitely seen it in the past for sure. Love to hear your opinion. Let me know what you think down below. If you like what I do, consider subscribing. See you in the next one. And as always, hold 'em down.